This is a Garmin Varia 500 radar blinker that goes on the back of a bicycle. It connects by Bluetooth to a speedometer that I have on the front of my bike. And when it's turned on and working, it will detect cars, trucks behind you up to a distance of almost 200 feet. And it'll brighten the LEDs. It'll also interact with the speedometer and show you the number of cars that are coming and the relative position. I've had this for a couple of years, probably 2 or 3, and unfortunately it died a day or two ago, and I had no idea what happened. The symptoms were simple. It just wouldn't turn on, no matter how many times I hit the button or tried charging the battery. So I kind of gave up and ordered the replacement, which is a newer version. But today I decided to take it apart, or at least attempt to take it apart and see what was going on. And perhaps this would be of interest to some of you. There is a single screw on the back of the device, and it just holds this little cap on. So don't worry about that. That doesn't do you any good. What you need is a little prying tool. I have this one called iSesame. A couple of dollars. Very thin, very sturdy spring steel. And what you're going to need to do is pry in between the clear cover, which is no small trick. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. And kind of walk around the edges. Now, obviously, it's easier for me the second time because the glue has been broken. And you'll see that that's the cover. And inside, you have all of the LEDs across here. The power LED that shows whether it's charged or not. And this is the radar part of it. There's another circuit board below. I already took out the screws. There are 4 screws that go into these holes, kind of hold everything together. Let me pop this out, again using the same tool. And I just pulled the radar board over. There's a small plug right here that plugs into a socket on the main board. Let's get that out of the way. There is a spacer and a cover for the LEDs here. And this is the main board. Let me see if I can pop that out. And on the very bottom is a battery. Unfortunately, that battery was dead. It was showing about 2.2 volts after it had been charged, which is not enough to wake this thing up. And I managed to pry it out. It was glued in with some double sticky tape. I pried it loose, and I have been able to replace it with a battery that I happen to have in my storage. It's not as powerful a battery. This one is 3.7 volts, which is the same as what came out of it, but only 670 milliamp hours. A little better than half of the other one, but that's okay because it fits. And that's going to be the trick. If you want to try to replace this battery, you're going to need to try to find something that's going to fit. I measured the battery that I had that works beautifully, and it's 52 by 39.5 by 4 millimeters. And the nice thing about the one I had is it already has wires on it. Some of them just have contacts. If I show you this battery here, it has contacts, one of which is marked positive, one is marked negative. So you'd have to solder the wires on there. And I did not try to disconnect the battery connector. I just cut the wires to the old battery, stripped them off, stripped the wires to the new battery, and soldered those together with a little bit of heat shrink tubing. And believe it or not, it now works. As a matter of fact, I can hold this button down and it'll wake up. Even though the radar is not there, it is at least lighting up and telling me what's going on. And to put it back together, again, just get the battery into that spot down on the bottom. Line the main board up, making sure that none of the wires are underneath the holes that you use to mount it. Line up the spacer. Push that down squarely. And that should get you into the socket correctly from here. Put in the 4 screws. And you're going to need to use some sort of glue to put this back on. Probably silicone sealant is what I'll use, or some of the double-sided automotive glue that they use to hold emblems and things onto a car. I may try that. But it's working fine. I'll give it a try on the bike in the next day or two and see if I've got a spare, because I'm obviously going to use the new one much more than the old. But there, in a nutshell, is how you open it up and, with any luck, fix it. And again, there's no reason you couldn't put an external battery on that. Bring those wires from the power board out through a hole that you would drill in there and put an external battery. You could have it last quite a long time. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was of some value. And if you have any comments, you can leave those below.